ஹலோ. எவ்வளோ தூரம் கேக்குது? Hello everyone.
Yes, ma'am, it's audible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good evening, madam. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Welcome
Yes,
you, sir.
hello, madam. Good evening.
So glad to meet you after so much time, sir. Thank you
Really
so
happy
much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. It's a really pleasure.
So the
So is my
meeting will start.
audio video? Madam?
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Hello, Kavi, sir. How are you?
Sir, good evening. How are you, sir? Fine, fine. Thank you, sir.
Fine. What about you?
Sir, meeting you after a long time, sir.
Yeah, definitely.
Really happy.
It's been a long time that we are meeting again.
Yes, sir. Really, it's my pleasure meeting you and being part of this program.
Meena, how many of them are joined?
In Google Meet, 28, sir. And in YouTube, all are joining, sir. So shall we start the meeting, sir?
Yes, madam, we can.
Okay. Okay. So good evening, everyone. We welcome you all for the second day of the National Webinar Series on Emerging Trends in Contemporary Literature in English. And yesterday we have the resource person, Dr. Mohammad Hanif, who talked about home, nation, and nationality. And today we extend the horizon from home to our environment around us. Yes, today's chief guest, Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, is going to deliver a lecture on eco-literature. And before we proceed the meeting, I'd like to talk a few words about the resource person today, because in one of the international conferences at Malaysia, before some 2 or 3 years back, me and Vidya, both of us, we met Kabir sir for the first time in that international conference at Malaysia. And a small incident still lingers in my mind. That is, before the inaugural session started, all of us are waiting for the chief guest and all. And really, it was a wonderful inauguration at that time. But what happened in the inauguration is something quite interesting. And I want to talk about that now because it's something connected with our chief guest today. In that inaugural session, the conference was going on as usual in a wonderful way. And at the end of the inaugural session, the person who is supposed to give word of thanks was missing because he was engaged in some other works, in the seminar works. And all of a sudden, Dr. Kabiyarasu was invited to propose the vote of thanks. And without any hesitation, he did that job in a wonderful way with such a spontaneity. And everyone in that conference was so much impressed with the word of thanks proposed by Kabiyarasu without any previous or prior preparation. And that was how we got associated with this person, such a wonderful and nice, kind, and a human being case. And we have such a wonderful speaker with us today. And now let me hand over the proceedings to the energetic and lovable colleague, Dr. K. Muthurajan. We request him to introduce the chief guest and be the moderator for the session. And the floor is now handed over to Dr. Muthurajan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible, everybody?
Yeah.
A very good evening. The chief guest for today's meet, Dr. Kaviyarasu, and all other people who are attending this. Well, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, Assistant Professor of English, Vivekananda College, Kanyakumari. Well, to tell you the truth, Dr. Kaviyarasu's resume is like a book and runs to over 50 pages. In this young age, he has achieved so many laurels in his life. He has a rich 15 years of teaching experience and 11 years of research experience. Until now, he has one international major project, one UGC minor project, one VHC minor project, and 3 academic projects to his name. He has edited 9 books and 6 journals. And coming to his publications, he has published 29 research papers with ISSN and 22 research papers with ISBN. When we come to papers presented, he has presented 83 research papers, including 6 papers in other countries. He has guided 10 scholars towards their MPhil degree and is presently guiding 4 scholars towards their PhD. And the list goes on and on and on. I'm sure that we are in for an enchanting evening listening to this polymath. Dr. K. Kaviyarasu sir, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Muthurajan and Dr. M. Meena Devi, Madam, for the wonderful introduction. I don't work that much, but it is just a humble beginning, I would say. And formally, good evening, learned friends, scholars, and students. I'm indeed happy to be part of this national webinar lecture series organized by the Department of English, VHNSN College, Autonomous, Virudhunagar. First of all, I thank the management, the principal, the head, Dr. J. Samuel Grubavaran sir, whom I always cherish and I get my inspiration from him, and Bhaskaran sir from VHNSN College. From their conferences, I got the spark that I have to present papers and organize conferences. So thank you so much, sir, for being a motivator in my life. And I also thank the conveners, Dr. M. Meena Devi and Dr. Y. Vidya, for inviting me. So with these words, let us just get into the lecture. To understand literature and eco-literature, we need to probe into the realms of knowledge and experience. Knowledge deepens and broadens one's experience, while experience kindles motivation for knowledge. Knowledge without experience is impractical, and experience without knowledge is superficial. So people with different backgrounds naturally have different experiences. When put in some environment, as in any literature, they come out with something called as the literary essence. So literature is a perfect blend of rational knowledge and a perpetual experience presented as a way of art. So here you can see the rationality which seeks truth, and perception seeks virtue, and art seeks beauty. So rationality, perception, and art are the foundation of literature. When it comes for eco-literature, I would say that eco-literature is the appreciation, and it is an attempt to understand the author's ecological knowledge, capture the experience of beauty and nature, and nurture the ethical value system. So, eco-literature as a whole is an embodiment of the rationalization, perception, and the aesthetics of nature. When you trace the origin of eco-literature, I would always say that to trace the origin of eco-literature, we have to trace the origin of literature. So literature originated when the human race started appreciating and recording the grandeur of nature. So it means the origin of eco-literature traces back to the origin of literature, yet it is not branded, or it was not branded so. Earlier, literature and nature were not separate identities. Literature and nature were part and parcel. And when every language is the imitation of nature, the literature created out of it is no doubt eco-literature. You can see earlier when the human beings are dependent on nature, they were just part of ecosphere. Nature was at the center. They had to be dependent on nature for everything, for their day-to-day life, for their food, for their shelter, and everything. They understood nature like anything. There was a kind of perfect bond and communication between man and nature. But when they started depending on themselves and their inventions, they slowly got distanced themselves from the natural environment. So here, at this point, we can see man starts putting nature at the outer circle and he becoming the center of attraction. The concept of we, which includes nature, is replaced by I, which is man. So when you see the emergence of this eco-literature, people think that eco-literature is a recent study. But I would always say that you have to go back to the classical and ancient literature from almost all the parts of the world, which had some form of ecological narrative in their literary constructs. Any ancient literature is taken, you can find animals and birds, oceans and lakes, skies and trees, which becomes a part of the storytelling from time immemorial. So without these elements, there is no literature at all. These elements played a predominant role. They made entry and exit into the stories very naturally in their original forms or as special avatars without affecting the story's narrative flow. No doubt, the oral literary tradition was nature-centric, which slowly became human-centric with the very first invention of mankind. The first invention of mankind, the language. Once the language has taken multiple forms, it has become anthropocentric. Man has created his language. Language has become a tool of communication. When language has become a tool for communication among the human beings, the communication between or among human being and the natural elements got disconnected. What happens here? Human beings are not able to communicate with the natural elements like animals, plants, or whatnot, where there is a perfect interconnection between animals and plants. There's a recent study which is going on plant biosciences, which says that plants do communicate through roots. There's a perfect communication amongst plants also. We thought that only animals and birds and human beings could communicate, but this recent study is taking the next leap where plants could communicate, and even there are some studies which say that rocks and other so-called inanimate objects or non-living objects do have lives. So science is just advancing to going back to find the roots where we were. We have lost our identity being part of nature. We got a new identity, but it is high time we go back. That is the need of the hour. That is why we got this lecture here. So one impulse from the vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil, and of good than all the sages can. Wordsworth rightly says. So eco-literature or nature writing is not simply about nature, but also the human relationship with nature. It is not just the appreciation of nature. It is something which says how man and nature is bounded with each other. Thoreau's work is not about, so we find Thoreau's works, yes. Wordsworth's works, Thoreau, Emerson's works are taken as a kind of a prototype study for this nature literature, but or eco-literature. But as I said, this new type of study can be traced back with the classics and ancient literature. Okay, so when you come to Thoreau, you can find his works are not just about plants or animals or birds alone. Many think that he is just admiring these plants, animals, and birds alone, but it is not so. It is about his relation to them, how he relates himself with them, how he finds his identity in them. Okay, so one may almost say about himself in connection with nature. How one finds himself in connection with nature is all we find in eco-literature. So when we see what is eco-literature, we think that eco-literature is something which is a critical work which is written on literature with the name eco-criticism. No, it is not so. Eco-literature includes the whole gamut of literary works, including fiction, poetry, criticism, which lays stress on ecological issues. So eco-literature focuses on ecological issues. Eco-literature is not a nature writing. It is not romantic poetry. It is not about how humans live in forest or in the mountains. In such cases, the writing would be only a realistic portrayal, just like other human environments. So eco-literature needs to explore deeper into portrayals of how environmental degradation leads to human agony, suffering, and displacement. You can see how the citizens turns into refugees within their own country. How economic and political exploration turn human lives upside down and jeopardize the environment, thereby making it unsuitable for life in future. Tracing these things in literature can be called as eco-literature. Doing these things in a kind of in the badge of activism is not eco-literature, but tracing all these things in literature as human stories of subtlety is eco-literature. We have Brian Norton's convergence hypothesis. According to Brian Norton's convergence hypothesis, when the value of people-centeredness or utilization and the value of life-centeredness are unity, that means the I and unity replacing you, converges, you can find the value of conservation of biodiversity emerges, that is, eco-consciousness emerges. So you have to compromise the people-centeredness. And when you compromise that, you can feel that eco-consciousness emerges. Sir, when you may ask the question, so why this eco-consciousness? Or when did people start thinking of this eco-consciousness? So far, you can see till the beginning of the 20th century, people did not think much on this eco-consciousness. There was a warning bell. There was an alarm to mankind that something wrong has happened. So the idea of eco-consciousness appeared owing to the natural crises such as pollution, global warming, overpopulation, waste disposal, climate change, deforestation, and ozone layer depletion. So all these are interconnected. Earlier, they said that these environmental crises are just because of ozone depletion. And then they started saying this, oh no, it is not just because of ozone depletion. It is because of global warming. Because of global warming, you find this ozone layer depletion taking place. And then they say, no, because of why it is global warming? Because of greenhouse gases. And what is the reason for this greenhouse gases? Because of the overpopulation. And because of this ozone layer depletion, what happened? Climatic change take place. Because of global warming, climatic change take place. And you find when all these happens, the root cause of everything is pollution, the improper disposal of waste or improper waste management. And there is improper waste management, improper waste disposal treatments. Pollution takes place, and because of pollution, what happens? All these natural crises took place. So you can find of all these, many people think that deforestation is the only thing which is related to nature. Okay, no. So destroying trees also contribute a lot, because if we grow a lot of trees, the greenhouse gases would be controlled. Okay, so I said that everything is related with everything else. So the real ecological issue comes here. There has been a rapid loss of ecological species with the progress of time. Only then people got aware. The natural habitats kept shrinking due to human activities. Wildlife poaching has resulted in species becoming endangered, pushed to the brink of extinction. There are more than 100 species in India alone, which is just almost extinct. And there are a few species which becomes an identity of our country is also endangered. The big cat, tiger, the Bengal tiger, an identity of our nation is also endangered. So it's all because of the human activities. So the illegal large-scale machinized way of fishing has resulted in the erosion of ocean diversity. So because of this machinized fishing, you can find not only the fishes, but also the ocean resources are being swindled. So the nature, not only on land, but also within the water, is being exploited in the name of exploration by mankind. In other side, you can see the large-scale deforestation across the world taking place. We saw that British people came here and they destroyed all the trees here in the Western Ghats, and there was one tree left out, one teak tree which was left out, which they say which was the youngest tree. But now you can see at least we need 5 to 8 members to hold the tree, right? To stand around the tree, to hold the tree. So it is such a huge tree, but that was the youngest tree which they have left out. That means they have taken away all the oldest trees. That tree is called as Kanimara, and it is a place to visit. And the Kanimara library is named after that tree. Okay, so you can find the large-scale deforestation across the world has led to displacement of the tribal populations. So the tribal population protected the environment. But what happened by displacing the tribal population? We have no one left in the forests to protect the environment. And consequently, what happened? There is a loss of their culture and the language. So the tribal settlement has the kind of language, and they had a culture which synchronized with nature, because their lifestyle was something which synchronized with nature. But since they were displaced, everything is lost. And the contemporary literary works need to focus on the effects of ecological havoc on humans. Most of us are fascinated towards science fiction. Yes, it is no wrong. Any scientific invention has its root in literature. From the literary imagination emerged all the scientific inventions. Yes, it's no doubt. But we have to give importance to the ecological crisis too. So the effects of ecological havocs on humans, like how large-scale tribal population lost their habitat to give away to gigantic industries, and how human activities have been shamelessly, incessantly, taking away the living spaces of the environment. So what happens here? You can find the living space of the environment is being now cleared, and amidst the jungles, many concrete jungles are found. So man has to answer this. So you can see here now the Western thoughts and the Oriental thoughts. You can find the Western thoughts, they want to explore more, and they want to find new things. Whereas the Oriental philosophy, it was just synchronized with the nature. Okay, so this is synchronizing with the nature and exploring into new realms of science and technology was a clash. So in the beginning of the 20th century, you can see there was a kind of a clash between religion and science. Religion, to some extent, it tried to protect nature, our environment. Okay, the religious principles, religious rituals were such. So the Western thought has often had more or less utilitarian attitude to nature. The nature, according to them, is something which is for serving human needs alone. However, you can see after the 18th century, there emerged many voices that demanded a revolution of the relationship between man and environment, and man's view of nature came out through the romantic poets. These romantic poets, they gave importance to nature. And you can find the concept of deep ecology emerged, which emphasized the basic interconnectedness of all the life forms and natural features, and presents a symbiotic and hostile worldview rather than an anthropocentric one. So you can find, according to deep ecology, there is a kind of basic interconnectedness in all life forms. So this is the essence which the recent researchers work on. And many questions emerged in people in the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century. They started raising various questions. Like, see, you say nature, what is nature? They want to know what is nature, because so far they never thought, or they never have differentiated or distinguished this nature from them. Now, for the first time, they are finding the difference between nature and artificial, because of the scientific inventions that happen. Nature is slowly being replaced by machines. See, you can see the industrial revolution in agriculture. Nature is slowly replaced by machines. So where's the place of man in nature? This was another important question which emerged, and this is a question which was a prime reason for the emergence of eco-criticism. And people also questioned whether nature exists for man's needs only. And they also questioned, how can we define nature? Because there is no nature at all. Nature is being conquered by mankind. And we find nature is being conditioned by mankind. And so all these questions emerged amidst the humanity. And as literarians, another question emerged. What is the contribution of literature to nature? What has an author contributed to nature? What is his contribution to nature? When these questions are raised, eco-literature gives an answer. We find the solution is in the view in which we look at, the way you look at nature, the perception which you have towards nature. All these things should be changed. Okay, so that is the contribution. Okay, so contribution is there in the reader. Okay, it is reader-centric also, right? And the readers also should place nature at the center. So these are the various discussions which emerged during that time, and slowly you can see a kind of a paradigm shift taking place. So the paradigm shift went like this. It started from the anthropocentric world. See, in this anthropocentric world, only people started questioning what this nature is. What is nature? What is the role of nature? Or what is man to do with nature? Okay, all these things played a vital role in moving towards the next step called as biocentrism. And then going to ecocentrism. When you ask what is anthropocentrism, anthropocentrism is the assumption or view that interests of humans are of higher priority than those of non-humans. So you can find here the view that humans are placed in center and they get the higher priority and the non-humans are insignificant. Okay. What happens? From this, it was very difficult to put man himself to the periphery. Okay, so what happened? He wants to put nature at the center. So what happened? He started adopting the concept of biocentrism. It is the view that all organisms, including human beings, are part of a large biotic web. Okay, so this large biotic web includes all the living beings, all the organisms. Okay, so man, animal, bird, insect, whatever it be, any living thing, living being is a part of this biome and this biosphere. Any biome which is part of this biosphere is common. So you can't divide it. You cannot differentiate it. Okay, this division or differentiation can never takes place here in the biocentrism. So people started finding that comfortable saying that yes, I am part of this biome, and even then there they had a kind of classification, segregation. They eliminated one important component, so that was included in ecocentrism. So it is not bio-literature, it is eco-literature. You have to have in mind. So ecocentrism is the view of environmental ethics that the interest of the ecosphere must override that of the interest of the individual spaces. So you can find, so here the ecocentric attitude, you find in the ecosphere, individual species loses their identity. You can never get identity individually, any species, like our structuralism. Okay, so you can find here there is another explanation for this ecocentrism. So here the world is an interconnected web of relation where no absolute dividing lines between the living and the non-living, the animate and the inanimate is found. So as we said already, you can find in the biocentrism, you find all the living beings are put together and the living beings get their identity being connected with the other living beings. But here ecocentrism says that no, any living being gets its identity also because of the non-living being, or the animate gets its identity through the inanimate, or the inanimate gets its identity from the animate. So it is part and partial of it. So the origin of modern ecocentric ethics are traceable to Ido Leopold, who is the inventor of the land ethics. So here you can find he enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals. So earlier we had these plants and animals only. He includes soils and waters also into ecocentrism. Okay, and you can find Peter Barry classifying in Peter Barry. We can find the classification of nature as area 1, area 2, area 3, and area 4. Area 1 is the wilderness, area 2 is the scenic sublime, and area 3 is the countryside, and area 4 is the domestic picaresque. So here, once again, you can see nature as a raw, the untouched nature, where human beings have not disturbed this nature, is called as wilderness. Like deserts, oceans, and uninhabited continents and islands, where human being has not explored, are called as the wilderness. Man has, or human beings are exploiting, and they are conquered almost all the fertile regions on land, but they are not able to explore or exploit deserts or oceans, because these are not suitable for them to live. But if they come to know that there are many treasures, many beings which would benefit them, they will not leave the places also. So the area 2, which is called the scenic sublime, is forest, lakes, mountains, cliffs, and waterfalls which are inhabited by human being. So the first area, the untouched nature, the wilderness, and the scenic sublime is place where you find man has created. Okay, you can find man has started using that place. There are trees which has formed naturally, and man started to use the place, and he started to enjoy the benefits of the place. So he enjoys the benefits of the place, like a forest, lake, cliffs, mountains, and waterfalls, and it's called a scenic sublime. And area 3 is countryside, where you can find hills, fields, and woods, which you can find the fields and woods are once again a kind of forest which is man-made. Okay, man decides and designs what to be here and what not to be here. And the fourth area is the domestic picaresque, where once again he clears everything and he designs the whole thing according to his whims and fancies, like parks, gardens, lanes. Okay, so he artificially creates. So let us say that certain plants which are there, which grow only in Ooty, they bring here and make a kind of condition that it should be grown here, and they water the plant often. They create a kind of temperature zone so that the plant grows here. So all these things are which come under the domestic picaresque. So what happens here? Here there is a kind of relationship between man and nature, either in wilderness or in the domestic picaresque. Even in the domestic picaresque, he wants to be with the nature. He wants nature to be part of him. Okay, he is not void of nature here. So the study of the relationship between man and nature, which was unexplored for a long time, was explored in the 18th and 19th century. So the word ecology was first proposed by the German biologist Ernest Haeckel in 1869. And you can find the relationship between man and nature is something like they found that it is inseparable. And not only man and nature are connected, everything in the biosphere are connected, which Barry Commoner comes with the first law of ecology, stating everything is connected to everything else. So for the first time, they start looking at ecology as a study, okay, placing literature at the forefront. So when literature throughout the world spoke from the human point of view, that is anthropocentric perspective, eco-criticism made an earth-centered approach, where William Ruckert coined the term eco-criticism in 1978 in his essays Literature and Ecology, an Experiment in Eco-Criticism. And also Cheryl Gladfeldy gave a definition to this eco-criticism as the study of relationship between literature and physical environment. You all know that eco and critics come from the Greek word oikos and critics, that is house judge, which is, so this oikos and critics is a habitat. Oikos is a habitat which comprises the spirits, human, nature, and culture. So oikos is not just human and nature. Oikos is a habitat which comprises the spirits, which is left out in many studies. So spirits are also included in oikos. And it's a nexus of the sacred, human, the nature, and the cultural phenomena. The culture is the lifestyle of the society. So eco-criticism deals with the relationship between culture and nature. So any culture is a byproduct of the nature of the landscape. So eco-critics reject the notion that everything is socially or linguistically constructed, because everything is naturally and culturally constructed. It takes an earth-centered approach to literary studies, as we saw. We found many people voicing for eco-criticism. As Suresh Frederick rightly infers, when the postmodernist voice for the voiceless, eco-criticism speaks for the voiceless earth. Yes, eco-criticism is a voice for the voiceless earth. So earth could not voice itself. So it is almost in the face of destruction. It is high time we resurrect this earth. So eco-critics come forward for this. In various countries, we find this in different labels. In America, it is called as eco-criticism. There you can find the tone of this eco-criticism is celebratory. You can find they cherish nature because of the environment, okay, the splendid nature which is around them. Whereas in Britain, they call this as green study. Here, the tone is minimatory. That is, it is a kind of warning that they have destroyed this environment. And it's a threat from the environment that they have to protect the environment. So the eco-criticism deviates from the green studies. You can find the subtle undercurrent is there. In India, eco-criticism is termed as icopoetics, later Thinai poetics, and then neo-Thinai by Nirmal Salomani. It does it to remind the rules. Okay, so of course, in India, we have in Tamil culture, we have the concept of Thinai. Okay, so Thinai, where the land and life were something which went hand in hand, and each complemented the other. Yes, Scott Slovic, who is the founding president of ASLE, offered a broad description of eco-criticism. He says eco-criticism is the study of explicitly environmental text from any scholarly approach, or conversely, the scrutiny of ecological implications and human nature relationships in any text, even text that seems at first glance oblivious of non-human world. So here he clearly mentioned that it is not only something between human and nature, but also something with the human and nature and non-human world. Okay, so We find there are many other definitions also. There is one Lawrence Buell, who is one of the founders of eco-criticism. Okay, he says that the non-human environment is present not merely as a framing device, but as a presence that begins to suggest the human history is implicated in natural history. So human history is implicated in natural history. Without nature, human survival or history is impossible. Okay, so you can find people around the world, they coming out with their understanding of this eco-criticism. Nirmal Salomani in his Icopoetics, Athene Poetics, or Neo-Athene, he comes out with once again 3 different types of icos: integrative, hierarchic, and anarchic. So once again, the base is the land. Okay, so the land is, or the earth is, something which is called as he uses the 2 terms Mudarpurul and Karupurul. Okay, you might have learned it. So Mudarpurul and Karupurul, he connects this. So the Tinai, the concept of Tinai is something which says that what happened? Without this, the other is not possible. Even the climate is because of the city, the landscape, or the lifestyle. So you can find each things complement the other. So based on the landscape only, the type of animals, the type of food, the type of people and their profession, all these things are decided. Okay, so that is natural. Okay, when you try to go against this, what happens? When you try to change the landscape or the profession, or when you try to bring another species into this landscape, what happened? This landscape gets altered, and this altered landscape, he clearly says, the altered landscape is palai. Okay, you have to leave the landscape as it is. You should not try to encroach into it, and you should not change or alter the landscape. When you take into consideration, almost 80% of the landscapes are altered. That means it is palai. It has become palai. Right? Right. So you can find the hierarchy, integration, hierarchy, and anarchy taking place here. So the integration, what happens? So the same thing can be extended to eco-criticism also. What happens? The sacred nature and culture of human beings are there in a kind of complex kinship. So what happened? There is a kind of family-like environment where they live like a kith and kin in the integrated setup. That is in olden days. Before they come out with something called as language or literature, what happened? They solely depended on nature, and during that time you could find this kind of that bond between the human culture, nature, and sacred very strong. And slowly what happens? There was a kind of hierarchy which emerged, and in everything the concept of superior and inferior emerged. So the inferior should be the subordinate, and the superior should be the the ruler. Okay, so you can find the ruler and the ruled concept. Okay, and it is a kind of power flow. Here it is flowing in the vertical direction. That means there is a kind of there is no kind of bond between the nearby or by the other beings. Let us say, if you take the land, you say that they look at as wetland and fertile land. So wetland is considered to be a kind of potential and productive land which has been protected and for which mankind fought for. Whereas here there is a kind of dry land which is infertile and it's not productive, and man do not want this. Okay, so in this hierarchy also what happens, that's a kind of division. And in all these you can see that in hierarchy man places him at the center, and he says that these different types of landscapes or animals, all these things are there to serve him. But the hierarchy cannot remain same. When one breaches the hierarchy, there's a kind of utter confusion and anarchy prevails. When sacred is brought here in ego-criticism, you can see human beings goes to an extent of asserting that God is no more. As Friedrich Nietzsche says in Thus Spake Zarathustra, God is no more. So I am here to take the responsibility of God to protect nature. This is one stand. The other stand says that I am supreme now, and the nature created by God is inferior to me. So I am the ruler, I am the boss of this land, this environment, the whole world. Okay. So things have to change. When there is utter confusion, when things fall apart, they go back to integration. We are in that verge where we are here in an anarchic stage where we think that the whole world is for us and we are here to protect the environment. But we forget that every other living being has its own form of or way of life, and they can manage their life, and it is not we alone here to protect or to guard them or to nurture them. So this concept of eco-criticism is being dealt with by the eco-critic. The eco-critic thinks that he is a kind of a replacement of God, okay, and it is his responsibility to look at this whole world in his perception. So this is a kind of study which emerged. But who is an eco-critic? Rightly saying, eco-critic is a person who judges the merits and faults of writings that depict the effects of culture upon nature with a view towards celebrating nature, says Howard. So we have to identify the faults and the merits in nature, and it should be in a kind of in the tone of celebration. That is the American way of looking at nature or eco-criticism. And you can also find the definition by Richard Courage, stating that the eco-critic wants to track environmental ideas and representations wherever they appear in a great many cultural spaces. So culture plays a predominant role here in eco-criticism, where you can find that culture is being changed, and we have to go back to the roots of the culture which is based on nature. There are many literary critics like Cheryl Grodfelty, Harold Fohm, Lawrence Bew, Scott Slovic, Kate Soper, Carla Ambruster, Ursula Hayes, and Dana Phillips, who contributed to the field of eco-criticism, along with Raymond Williams, Jonathan Bate, Lawrence Cope, Greg Garrard, Richard Courage, and Terry Gofford, who also make a lot of researches on eco-criticism. So what do these eco-critics do? These eco-critics put forth the idea that man is not a master of nature. You must have this in mind, that eco-critics say that man is not the master of nature. They point out the importance of reading major literary texts to subvert our anthropocentric point of the world. So all these major literary texts should be taken and it should be reread in a kind of a biocentric or ecocentric perspective. Okay, so don't look at these texts in an anthropocentric perception. This is what the eco-critics say. So eco-criticism assumes that all life forms are interlinked, as said, and eco-criticism expands the notion of the world to include the entire ecosphere. So it doesn't want to leave anything. So eco-criticism now, or the eco-critics now, they say the whole world, they want to, or that encompass the whole world into this realm, and so they don't want to leave anything. And they also believed that human culture is related to the physical world, and they put emphasis on the relationship among man, culture, and nature. So here you can find eco-critics also discuss the relationship by using concepts and terms from philosophy, biology, and they create a eco-consciousness and compose eco-ethics. So this criticism is something which is of course a kind of interdisciplinary, where you can find it is not just literature alone. It involves another discipline. Okay, so the bifurcation of disciplines also, it is something which took place only after this 16th century. Okay, before that one has to master everything. Okay, a person is called as a doctor if only he were that has a knowledge of everything, including physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, medicine, literature, philosophy, theology, whatever it be. He has to master everything. Only then he is called as a doctor. Okay, but things have changed now. Okay, so you can find that there are three different waves of eco-criticism. The first wave of eco-criticism from 1970 to 1990, the second wave of eco-criticism from 1990 to 2000, and the third wave of eco-criticism from 2000 till date. So when you take the first wave of eco-criticism, it says that man is superior to nature. Okay, so what happens? Man is there. He has he is here to protect nature. Yes, of course, man is there to protect nature. Man has to protect nature. This is the first wave of eco-criticism. This is the voice of the first wave of eco-criticism. Okay, so when you say that you want to protect nature, that means that you are superior. Okay, only a superior person can protect an inferior person. Okay, so that is what. And the second way of eco-criticism, it said that man is equal to nature. Okay, so there is a kind of a concern over the human concern over the non-human nature. Okay, so what happens here? There's just a concern. So the concept of concern on nature emerges here in the second wave. Okay, so here you can see no longer humans are humans. No longer the human beings and the environment are opposed to each other. Okay, and there's a kind of mutualism taking place here. Okay, so they mutually started complementing each other. They started looking at the nature as a mutual co-inhabitant. Okay, so the concept of co-inhabitant emerged here. And the third way of eco-criticism, man says that I am just below nature. So nature is superior to me. The new wave of eco-criticism, it emerged from 2000, and still you can find this new wave of eco-criticism. It examines the so here this new wave of eco-criticism also examines the environmentality as the key contributor to all text rather than nature writing. So there should be environmentality. So you can find there's a kind of exploring the social, economical, and physical dimension of environmental process in an aspect that the nature and the human, where human inherit something from nature. They see here in the third wave of eco-criticism, people say that only human inherit from nature, and it is not the human here to protect or concern or to have what that some pity over nature. Okay, so as the third wave of eco-criticism is in full swing, you can find the third wave of eco-criticism claims that eco-criticism is a multidisciplinary research field, and they propose miscellaneous research topics. So you can find eco-criticism is something which is associated with various other areas of knowledge, like the movements. Feminism is associated with eco-criticism, and it became ecofeminism. And theology and spirituality once again is associated with eco-criticism, and so you get eco-theology and eco-spiritualism. And the post-colonialism is associated with the eco-criticism, and so eco-criticism. And even this the concept of eco-criticism is there in cinema and theater. So it it got a new identity called as eco-cinema or eco-theater. And you can find inside the realms of psychology, Marxism, you can find eco-psychology and eco-Marxism. And even you can find in pedagogy also, you can find eco-criticism, eco-pedagogy is also emerged. So you can find eco-pedagogy is an approach to education that seeks to re-educate planetary citizens to care for, to respect, and take action for all life. So what happened? So this is called as eco-pedagogy. Okay, it is not just learning for one individual, but for caring for all. Right? So that is it. And the last, so you can find later Cliffy, that is climate fiction, which deals with the climatic changes and global warming in literature also. Okay, so these are the various isms and logies. So many isms and logies are self-evolving day by day, transcending disciplines, seeking truth, virtue, and beauty, as we said. And eco-literature has found stronger proponents in the realms of literature, and so it is high time it gained strength and turned into a strong wave across the literary ocean. So I would always say the new literature formed with this consciousness of nature can be branded as neo-eco literature. So with this, let me just finish my small brief outline of ecology, eco-criticism, and eco-literature. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that very comprehensive lecture that you gave us. I think the lecture that you gave us is really very significant right now, because right now, as you started with deforestation, global warming, all that are burning issues, and eco-criticism definitely plays a very important role in all that. So this lecture we can consider this lecture as a wake-up call against destroying nature. Thank you, sir. We have got some questions for you also. The first question is from Talaivasal Mohan. He asks that eco-criticism deals with environmental concerns only, or this theory can be applied to all nature poetry. eco-criticism deals with environmental concerns only, or this theory can be applied to all nature poetry?
So here we can, if you see if you face the evolution of ecocentrism, you can see in the beginning it was just appreciating the nature poetry or nature writings, but later you can find the recent concept of eco-criticism is just taking into consideration all the biomes and all the living and non-living beings, okay, in the ecosphere. So it can be used to appreciate not only the poetry but also any inanimate objects which are there described in literature.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. This is from Mahesh Yogi. Is it possible to overcome nature?
Overcoming nature, I do not know what he means, but overcoming nature is not possible, because it is here we have started realizing we are not above nature and we are just an iota of nature. Okay, so it is simply not possible. We think that through our inventions and scientific advancements we can overcome nature, but even then we have miles to go, because you can find here when you take the scientific discoveries, they say that even the galaxy or Milky Way is just an iota of the larger space. Okay, so even all these things, the black hole is just an iota only. It's a dot. Okay, so we can't overcome nature. If at all if we try to overcome nature, definitely we have to reap the consequences.
Thank you, sir. I think we can take one more question. This is from Brishma SJ. Can you explain the concept of ecofeminism?
Yes. So ecofeminism is something here you can find many theories emerged, and as I told, this interdisciplinary approach has been made on many theories, where eco consciousness is being found as reflection in other movements also. Okay, they want to associate this eco consciousness in every other movement. So feminism is one such massive movement which has brought in a lot of change in people's lifestyle also. You must know that. Okay, so the lifestyle of people in the society, the social norms has changed because of feminism. So that is why they started associating this with feminism. And you can find ecofeminism traced a connection between the exploitation and degradation of the natural world and the subordination and oppression of women. So in this way, they want to find a kind of justice that, like nature, they are also suppressed. Okay, and like nature, they are also exploited. So they the female gender, they try to kind of associate themselves with this ecosphere or the environment or earth or globe, whatever it be. Okay, so that is why this concept of ecofeminism emerged.
Thank you, sir, for clearing all our doubts. Now, can we have Professor A. Mohan Raj to deliver the vote of thanks, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, one and all present here. It's an honor to me to offer the vote of thanks on this special occasion, the national webinar organized by our department On behalf of the Department of English, I would like to thank our Honorable Principal, Sir, Dr. P. Sundrabandian, respected Head of the Department, Dr. J. Samuel Kurba, sir, our invited special guest speaker, Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, sir, Assistant Professor of English, Vivekananda College, Kanyakumari. A big thank to you, sir, for sharing your knowledge on equiliterature, refer and response to just one central idea of the speaker. From this lecture, I remember Thoreau's quote, live in each season as it passes, breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of the earth. I'd like to express my gratitude to all the participants for your active participation and interaction with your queries. And I thank the conveners of the program, Dr. M. Meena Devi and Dr. Y. Vidya ma'am, for organizing this informative national webinar. I thank research scholars Mr. J. Dhoni Preeti and Mr. M. Tajias for assist the webinar, and I thank Mr. S. Madanapandi for technical support. And once again, I thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Dr. Kaviyarasu, sir, for the knowledge sharing, and Dr. Muthurajan for being the moderator and for the smooth flow of the session. And I thank once again the Professor A. Mohan Raj for proposing the vote of thanks, because he is the youngest chap of our department, and but he is the most active professor. And we used to call him as Uyarnda Manidan. See, you can see how he is filling the whole screen with his stature. And thank you, Mohan Raj, for your wonderful vote of thanks. And dear participants, the feedback link is available in the chat box, and please fill it. And the meet will be open for another 10 more minutes. And meet you all tomorrow, the final day of our session. Thank you once again. Thank you so much. And hope we all meet together. We will connect together in the next day, that is tomorrow, and hope to meet you all together. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kaviyarasu. Thank you. That was interesting and informative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hoping to meet you soon in your.
Okay, definitely. Do come to our college.
Definitely, sir.
Probably in the next academic year, we will meet you. We will have a seminar.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.